Hi guys, it's Justin Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. So I recently finished reading The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I have so many thoughts regarding this book. So this is going to be a spoiler-filled deep dive into The War of Two Queens. Alright guys, if you have not read The War of the Two Queens, please stop watching now. This video contains all the spoilers. Now, I'm going to do this similar to my other reviews, where I watch my predictions video of The War of Two Queens and react to what I got right, what I got wrong, and what I think is going to happen in the 5th book. Now, there is a lot of controversy going on with this book, so I will have another section where I just talk about the joining, and then last will be my overall thoughts regarding the book. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about The War of the Two Queens. Alright guys, so I have my laptop in front of me and I'm going to watch my predictions video and then react accordingly. I know I got some of these so wrong, so this should be fun. So I believe the dark one is actually Malik and Isbeth's son. So if you remember, it's not. Bones, Isbeth and Malik had a child, and Isbeth believes Eliana actually killed that child. Did we get anything about the son in The War of Two Queens? I don't think he's even brought up. Or by Alistair, because Alistair seems to be working with the unseen, and he actually, that child grew up to be the Dark One. That would explain how he has powers, because he is descended from Malik, and he's able to control the Craven. And I believe he is the one that is still controlling the unseen. If you remember, the Unseen are this group of Atlanteans that are fighting for Atlantia that attacked Poppy. And I don't think we get a lot from the Unseen either, actually. I have to go back and do a reread, but I don't think the Unseen, I know we get Germs, there's a fight with the Germs, but I don't think the Unseen pop up in The War of Two Queens. But they also were the ones that had the Germs, I believe, and were able to, Germs being the dead bodies. So if he's able to control them, I believe he has some sort of magic, so that's what makes me think that the Dark One is actually the child of Isbeth and Malik, thereby being the grandchild of Nyktos. Okay, so I was totally wrong there. So we find out that it was actually Cass's brother, Malik, who attacked Poppy and her family when she was younger, and that's when she was attacked by the Craven. So apparently Malik was already kind of like a prisoner of Isbeth, and he found out about this prophecy, and he's like, I need to kill her daughter, found out where she was hiding, led the Craven, and then when he was about to kill Poppy, he couldn't do it. So I think he brought her back to Isbeth, but it was actually him, which I did not see coming at all. I was really sure it was Isbeth and Malik's son, but it's fine. Next up, I think Leo's alive. If you don't remember who Leo is, maybe his name was Leopold, but it was short for Leo. He was the man that we do find out about Leo. Poppy, and he was said to have red hair, and he also is a possible contender to be the child of Malik and Isbeth, although I don't really think that's true. But I do think he's alive. We never find out if he was actually killed. We know the mom was killed, but they never really go into depth of what happened with Leo, and I just feel like he's going to come into play. I don't know if it's going to be in The War of Two Queens. Might be in the next book, but I feel like he's alive and doing something somewhere. I mean, he could still be alive doing something somewhere, but we find out that he's actually, I believe her name was Coralina, Isbeth's handmaiden that stole Poppy's Victor, and he was supposed to protect Coralina. So I don't know if we're going to get any more from him. I am happy he got brought up in The War of Two Queens because I thought that was a long shot, but yeah. Not the son. And my next theory is regarding Malik, Castiel's brother. So one, I'm 99.9% sure he's a double agent. I think that he's actually just pretending to be working with the Ascended, and he's actually going to figure out a way to free Castiel or try to free Castiel. I also have a feeling he was in love with the Revenant or something, because... So I called it. He was in love with the Revenant. I'm really proud of that theory. So he doesn't actually help Castiel. He does help Castiel. He heals his wound when Castiel's injured, but he doesn't actually break him out. And we find out that he's actually heartmates with the Revenant, who I'm going to talk about her history in a second. But yeah, so that actually was true. When I was doing my reread, there was a part where Isbeth is cutting the Revenant's throat and explaining how she can be reborn and doesn't die. and Malik like almost jumps up to protect her. So I feel like for some reason, also really messed up that Isbeth is doing that to her daughter. I'm going to talk about the theory because I actually kind of made fun of the sister twin theory later in this video, but I wouldn't think Isbeth would be like, yeah, let me slice my own daughter's throat just to show that these Revenants can't die. She's just such an evil woman. Malik might have a relationship with that Revenant. Also, question on the Revenants. I think that they might end up being good. So I feel like Poppy is able to get emotions or read emotions from the Revenants that she's not able to do with the Ascended. And I know Nyktos called them an abomination, but I don't know. It seems like that one Revenant, that one that we see Isbeth torture, actually has a good side of her. She talks about protecting the people when Poppy's kind of going on a rampage and wants to kill everyone. So I'm interested to see what happens with the Revenants. I mean, we do know that... So we find out that, I think her name's Millicent. She actually is Poppy's sister, and there's a whole backstory with her. But I think she's different than the other Revenants. So I think that maybe all the Revenants are pretty much abominations, and they are terrible. But Millie in particular, I'm not even sure if she really is a Revenant. She might be something completely different. And that's why Poppy's able to like read her emotions. And I really like that character. She just seems kind of out there, and I'm here for it. He now has the power to kill them with the Draken, but still, I feel like there's going to be, I don't know, something's going to happen with them. All right, and my next theory is regarding Tawney, and it does touch a little bit into A Shadow in the Ember, so I'm going to elaborate. I was so wrong here. Tawney, I believe, when at the end of A Crown of Gilded Bones, she has some sort of illness. We don't know what it is, and her hair has turned white after being seen by a healer. And I believe that she's actually harboring something very dangerous. And I think that when she awakens, she's going to be a threat to the people surrounding her in Atlantia. So that's, I don't know. I have a little bit of evidence to back that up, but that's what I believe. I've also seen a lot of people shipping Kieran and Tawney. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. The story about how Kieran lost his first love because of a genetic woven disease was just like heartbreaking. So I'm not sure if I'm ready for him to fall in love with anybody else. Oh, little did I know. Okay, so with Tawney, we find out that she ends up almost, I think she dies, and then she sees the original Victor from Blood and Ash, and he kind of tells her about the prophecy, and then she comes back, goes to Poppy, and like tells Poppy what Victor told her. I thought that Tawney, and I think I forgot to explain it later in this prophecy, that she was actually the harbinger, and that like Kolis was going to infect her or something. That didn't happen. Yeah, and obviously I'm not shipping Tawney and Kieran. But anyway, that's what I think is going to happen with Tawney. I think that there's going to be some sort of threat because of the illness that was inflicted upon her by Isbeth. And the next two are just generalizations of things I want to see more of in the War of Two Queens before we jump into A Shadow in the Ember, like crossover prophecy stuff. So, for one, I love Kieran and Reever. Like, they're arguing and fighting. I hope that keeps up into the War of Two Queens. I was not disappointed. It really kept up. Because I love that, like, dynamic. I think it's so funny. And so, Reever is probably my favorite character. I love Reever so much, and I'm so happy we get to see him in A Shadow in the Ember, and then we also see him in the War of Two Queens, just to see him as, like, a kid, and then to see him as a grown adult that doesn't like clothes. And him and Kieran's interactions, I just think are so much fun. So definitely one of my favorite characters. And you'll see what I'm about to say now. Like, I think it's so funny. And the next, and most important, is we better get the joining in the next book. I am 100% team joining. I want to see it. It needs to happen, and I'm just very hopeful. Also, we got the joining, and I'm happy about it. I was team joining. It's been hinted for all of the books. So I was very happy when it happened, and I stand by that. I'm going to go more into that a little bit later, but those are my feelings. Obviously, all of us are interested in what happens with Castile. I'm really hoping Castile is able to bond with his brother when he is taken by the queen. I know Jay didn't really bond. He kind of bonded with his brother. Like, we found out what his brother's motivations were for the choices he made. But, yeah, I feel like his brother Malik was kind of a letdown in this book. I wanted a little bit more from him. J-Law released the first 5 chapters of A War of Two Queens, and so far it's not looking good. So I'm very worried, but also so anxious. I just cannot wait for this book to come out. All right, so now moving into Shadow in the Ember spoilers. So if you have not read A Shadow in the Ember, please do not watch further. This all has to deal with things that we found out in A Shadow in the Ember. So first off, most important, I am really hoping that in A War of Two Queens, I feel like this is going to how A War of Two Queens is going to end, that Poppy is going to be able to save Iris, bring her back to the Elysium. I meant to say bring him back to the Elysium. thereby waking Sera, and Sera and Poppy are just gonna kick some butt because we know that. So Sera and Poppy did kick butt, just not in the way that I thought was gonna happen. So Sera almost goes into Poppy, and Poppy's able to use like the Primal of Life power, but like Sera physically isn't there. She kind of just like, I don't know, doesn't take over Poppy, but is able to use her power that way. And it was so badass, and I loved it. That last chapter was so good. Know that Sera was trained to be an assassin and can fight, and then you have Poppy, and it's gonna be so good, and I'm so excited, and that's like my main thing that I'm hoping for that happens. So next up, I'm gonna talk about the prophecy. I have tried really hard to memorize it and recite it for you guys. Guys, I literally spent 45 minutes trying to recite that prophecy so I didn't have to read it off the screen. Such a waste of time. I can't do that, so I'm going to read off my computer, which is something I absolutely hate doing, but just so you guys can know what or at least reference what I'm talking about when I talk about the prophecy. All right, so the prophecy in A Shadow in the Ember goes, from the desperation of golden crowns and born of
cue dramatic music,
a great primal power rises as the heir to the lands and seas, to the skies and all the realms. A shadow in the ember, a light in the flame, to become a fire in the flesh. When the stars fall from the night, the great mountains crumble into the seas, and old bones raise their swords beside the gods. The false one, born of the same great and primal power in the mortal realm, a first daughter with blood full of fire, fated for the once promised king.
It's actually really cool to hear this It's actually really cool to hear this prophecy now, knowing what I know from the War of Two Queens, because I was making connections that didn't make any sense that I'm going to do later. But yeah, it's interesting.
With blood full of ash and ice, the other half of the future king. Together, they will remake the realm and usher in the end. So that is the prophecy we get, and I'm going to break it down and give you my theories regarding like what's actually going to happen in the War of Two Queens. All right, so I have a few different theories regarding the prophecy.
I had a lot of theories regarding the prophecy.
I thought I had it completely figured out, and then J-Law threw a huge wrench in my plan and said that Sera is definitely not the first daughter. So now I have like a lot of different ideas. The main thing is we have to figure out who the first and second daughter.
And I'm pretty sure we now know who the first and second daughter is.
Saying that Poppy is the second daughter, and they're trying to figure out who the first one. I've seen some people say that Tawney might end up being one of the daughters. I'm not sure how that would work. Another theory I've seen is that Poppy actually had a twin, which
I called it, but I wasn't like convinced at all.
Makes sense because she is descended from Nyktos, and Malik and Iris are twins, so twins do run in this.
And they're not twins. They're sisters.
Actually, there is another daughter. Some have even said the other daughter might be the Revenant, which I'm not really sure why Isbeth would do that and kill her other daughter or turn her into whatever she is.
The other daughter was the Revenant, and I still don't know why Isbeth did that. Well, I understand. So Isbeth had a child with Iris in order to, she was trying to create a primal power, but during the Ascension, something went wrong, and that's how Millie ended up becoming this like Revenant type thing. And then she tried again with Poppy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I feel like just dyeing your hair black and covering up your freckles, you'd still be able to figure out that they were sisters. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Also, they don't look similar. I guess they don't have to be identical twins, but I would think there would be some similarities, but I'm not sure. So a theory that
yeah, once again, not twins. They're just sisters, and she was wearing makeup.
Am going with, and I could be completely off base. I actually just came up with it while I was doing my reread, and I have to go back.
I was so proud of this theory.
What if Poppy's pregnant? Because the only reason I say this is she was really stuck on the boat, but that also could be the fact that she was on a boat and she's not used to being on a boat and she was scared. But then also at the very...
Also, real quick, so as soon as I started the book, Poppy talks about having to take an herb for pregnancy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I called it. I was right. She was pregnant, and like we're going to find out that the herb didn't work or something like that. And then that didn't happen, so.
And she crosses her stomach in order to get the sword. Now, I understand when you're pulling out a sword, you do cross her stomach, but I just feel like it was weird for J-Law to like throw that in there and to like really like mention it. So what if Poppy's actually pregnant and her daughter with Castile is the second daughter? Now, there's a lot of possibilities this isn't right. I'm pretty sure J-Law even makes a point to say that Castile is still taking some sort of tonic to stop pregnancy, but I don't know. It's a possibility. So please let me know down below who you think the first and second daughter are. I have no idea. It could be anything. I'm so excited to find out. And just some more evidence that Poppy might actually be the first daughter.
So the first daughter is Poppy's sister, Millie, and then the second daughter is, I believe, Poppy, and then Poppy is also the harbinger of the great evil. I think I talk about this again later in this video. It says that the first daughter was fated to marry the once promised king in the prophecy. Well, we find out that Poppy's ascension was actually her marrying Castiel's brother Malik, who was the promised king. He was going to be the king of Atlantia. So that actually fits her pretty well. So the more I read, the more I think that Poppy is actually the first daughter, and we haven't figured out who the second daughter is yet. Yeah, so Poppy, so Millie was the first daughter. She was supposed to have an ascension and marry, I think, Malik, and then that, or maybe Cass she was supposed to marry? I don't know, one of them, who was going to be the promised king. That didn't work out. And then the second daughter is Poppy, who is promised to a king, who is Cass.
Who is the false one? So in the prophecy, it talks about a false one who has fallen from glory and then is able to like rise again. I'm 99.9% sure that is actually Kolis, who we see in A Shadow in the Ember. So I've also seen some people say that the dark one that attacked Poppy when she was a child could also actually have been Kolis, because he did have the power to control the Craven and control, oh, he doesn't control, I guess he just controls the Craven, and he has shadows all surrounding him, which sounds like something Kolis could do. So there is a possibility Kolis is the dark one. As I talked about earlier, I believe the dark one is actually Isbeth and Malik's child, but we will say it could definitely be Kolis. There are some clues that it could be. So either way, I'm 99.9% sure the fated one they're talking about in the prophecy is actually Kolis. So Kolis is definitely the one that they're trying to bring back. We find out that Isbeth was going to, or she was originally supposed to sacrifice Poppy, I believe, but instead she sacrifices her love. Malik stabs him, and that's supposed to bring back Kolis. But then we find out that Kolis has actually already been awakened, I believe. I was a little confused at that part. If you know, let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, so Kolis is the one. He's going to be the big bad, I feel like, in the next book. Also, I believe all of the gods are awakening, which is pretty cool. I'm very excited about that. All right, guys, so let's talk about the joining before we get into my overall thoughts regarding the book. So as I said earlier, I was team joining. Jayla has been hinting about the joining since the very first book, so I wasn't super surprised when it happened. Now, I did think she might wait until like the last book in the series to actually pull it off, but hey. So as far as emotional cheating, I respect everyone's opinions. This is just my perspective, my thoughts, how I read the book. I don't think it was emotional cheating. I feel like Cass and Kieran have always had this very, very close bond. At one point, Kieran was Cass's bonded wolven, and they grew up together, and they were best friends, and Cass has always trusted Kieran. So then Poppy and Kieran have always had a friendship since this whole series started, and then when Cass is taken hostage, they really lean on each other for the fact that the person that they both love most is captured. I don't think it was emotional cheating. I just think that their friendship grew stronger because they didn't have Cass and they missed him. So then when the joining actually happens, I think it made sense. I think that they all love each other. They have this bond. I don't think it's a throuple situation. I feel like Poppy and Cass are still the main romance, and they just ended up bonding with Kieran because they love him and it's a group. So a lot of people are saying, well, they all slept together, not in a sexual sense, but like at the end when they're all kind of holding hands in bed. They did that also in A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and we didn't make anything of it then. So I don't think that it's going to be a throuple romantic situation. I think Cass and Poppy are still like the main romance that we love. Now, as far as the motivations for why the joining happened, I didn't love that. I feel like they tried to say that the curse that Isbeth put on Kieran, they thought they could break it by doing the joining. Yes, there are other benefits, like they won't grow old, or Poppy, they're all immortal now, essentially. But I feel that I kind of wish that had they done the joining, that the curse would have lifted instead of finding out that actually they did it for no reason, and the curse kind of gets lifted by the golden one later in the book. So overall, I enjoyed it. I feel like it was written in a very tasteful way. It was very vague, so you can kind of interpret it however you wish. And overall, I liked it. So let me know down in the comments what you thought about the joining. Personally, I thought it was fine. Now, my overall thoughts regarding this book. I love this. I mean, I love this world. I love these characters. I'm gonna love this book. This was probably my least favorite in this series, only because of some pacing issues. I felt like this was very slow paced. There were parts that I feel like could have been condensed. I feel that the writing also suffered a little bit. I feel like the writing wasn't as clean as some of the earlier books.
However, I still loved it. I thought it was great. I love seeing the prophecy come to fruition and finding out everything about the lore. I will say, I feel like the character, Castile, fell a little flat, especially since we actually got his point of view, which I loved. But I feel like I miss the snarky kind of character we had in the first book. I feel like he's kind of feeling a little bit one-dimensional right now. But hopefully he goes back to being like the normal cast in the next book. He's also dealing with a lot, so like that could be understandable. But overall, I very much enjoyed this. So if you are a fan of From Blood and Ash, I mean, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've already read it, but I highly recommend it. I really did enjoy it. I don't think it should be getting the amount of hate it's getting. Once again, that's just my personal opinion, but I really, really enjoyed it. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on A War of Two Queens. Please let me know down in the comments below what you think if you've read this book. I said this already, but I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.